David L. Gray is on with us to talk about the Freemasons. What's the big deal? Why can't a Catholic be a Freemason? What is the origin of the Freemasons, and what is their ultimate goal?
The Canon Law strictly forbids Catholics from being a part of secret societies. It used to say Freemasons in particular. Now it just says, I think, secret societies. But let's start there. Why does the Church prohibit Catholics from being a part of secret societies?
Yeah, that's an important thing to talk about. Is like you said, in light of the new canon, which says secret societies, but the canon prior to that, I think in 1917, explicitly said Freemasonry. And there always seems to be a lot of confusion about the issue because people think, oh, I can't be a Freemason because all the conspiracies and things like this. No, I mean, we can't be a Freemason because the church teaches so, and it teaches so dogmatically. It's not some sort of motu proprio that may change with Pope to Pope or some sort of discipline of the church which may change. No, it's a dogmatic teaching that's been in place since 1732 with Pope Clement, who found that Freemasonry is a harm to the soul and to the church. And he explicitly stated four reasons why Catholics cannot be Freemasons. And real succinctly, the first one was that Freemasonry is, it teaches naturalism, natural probity, that it relies on its own law. And he found out Freemasonry teaches indifferentism. Indifferentism, he met that. He looked at, clearly, I think he had some access to the Anderson's Constitution and maybe some Masonic rituals. And he saw that, well, Freemasonry is teaching that there wasn't anything supernatural or exceptional about Christianity. And that what it was teaching, that Freemasonry was proposing to be the center of union by which all men can agree. So it was taking in Christians and Jews at that time, and they were saying that in the Anderson's Constitution from 1723 was that it was proposing to be the universal religion by which all men can agree, and it was wanting to create a universal brotherhood.
Isn't that the job of the church?
Yeah, so and that's the natural rub.
That's our job.
yeah, and that's how we see Christ. We see Christ as a center of union. And so, and then the other two reasons that Pope Clement the 12th laid out was that it's more political reasons, which came to bear later, is really a prophetic encyclical in enmity that Clement 12th wrote. Because the other two reasons were that Freemasons are meeting in secret. We don't know what they're doing. They're causing suspicion. And that these secret meetings, they inveigh against the Catholic Church. And so that did come to fruit later. And we see that with Leo XIII and his seminal work against Freemasonry, encyclical Humani Generis.
Patty, who is one of our longtime big CDT insider fans, she is asking a question here. She's heard of one of the misconceptions is that Freemasonry was founded specifically to combat the Catholic Church in Europe. Maybe you can dispel that myth. Where did the Freemasons start? What was their initial purpose? And at what point did they take on the church?
Yeah, it's a really interesting history, Joe. And thanks, Patty, for that question, because Freemasonry was seen, arguably, I think we can trace this. Freemasonry starts from the European guilds, the guild system, and it was sort of like a labor movement. So back in Europe in the 12th, 13th, 14th century, you had these guilds, these men, Masons, who were building cathedrals and monasteries and all the great structures throughout Europe at this time. So they had a guild system. And so an interesting thing is that these Masons, who got the name Freemasons from the type of stone they worked with, the freestone, also Freemason from the fact that they would travel around to find labor. So they were free to find labor. And so interesting that obviously at this period in time, in Europe, before Anglicanism and the Church of England comes, that these were Catholics. They had always had a priest attached to their guild. They were devoted to some saint. They had festivals, Catholic festivals. So after Freemasonry, after the guild system evolves, modernization comes, and that's when we see Freemasonry transition from this operative organization to a philosophical organization that then started to have an ideology. And that's in 1717 where we see this Grand Lodge start. And as I said, their constitution, their first constitution, was an attack against the Catholic Church and what the Catholic Church is proposing. So I wouldn't say Freemasonry as a guild system was started to combat the Catholic Church, because it wasn't. These were Catholics. But in 1717, with the start of the Grand Lodge, we do see this trajectory that did start invading very strongly against the Catholic Church and trying to replace it. Long before people were talking about a New World Order or the Great Reset, there's what Leo XIII called the Masonic program, and it was a resetting of the moral order of the world.
Wow. So does that mean that the Freemason mythology that they trace their lineage back to the Egyptians building the pyramids, that is not true?
1.5 minutes.
That's not true. In 1.5 minutes.
You don't need more time to elaborate on that. Okay, so we're going to be up against a break here in just a moment. And one of the things I would like to do on the other side of our break is maybe share you and I a little bit of the insider baseball of some of at least the Blue Lodge. I only made it up to the 3rd degree, right? To Master Mason, Blue Lodge. But maybe sharing some of those rituals and why we as Catholics ought to have problems with the elements in some of those rituals. But one of them is they claim a ritual that claims to go all the way back to the Masons that built the temple under King Solomon and Hiram Abiff. And clearly this is coming out of the 18th century, long after Solomon died and was buried. At any rate, we're going to go to a break. I want to get into some of the rituals that you and I, now you were a far more powerful and influential Freemason than I was, but I was just a 3rd degree Master Mason. You went much further than I did.
And that's really surprising, Joe, because I remember all your life, you were like an overachiever when it came to grades. I mean, high school, college.
Okay, I cheated.
It surprises me that you didn't become a 35th. So.
Is there a 35th? I didn't even know that. Only people of your ilk would know that. See, they don't let me know that stuff. Now, I cheated before I knew I was going to join the lodge because my father was a Freemason. My mom's dad was a Freemason, and I knew I was going to join the lodge. I wanted to make my father proud of me, but I found a book at the bookstore that detailed all the rituals. And I cheated and I read that. And but I was fascinated by it because of their revisionist stealing of history and manipulating it for their ends, especially when it came to like the Holy Knights and the Crusades, and how they take that lore and use it to inspire men such as myself to go, I want to be a part of this. But let's dive into some of the rituals in the first 3 degrees at least. What did you, now that you've left the Freemasons, you're a Catholic, what do you find troubling about those rituals that you had gone through?
Yeah, looking back, that's a really great question, because I was more agnostic and deist than I was definitely anti-Christian at that time, but I was always appealed to Christian morality. I thought Christianity has something to offer the world. I just didn't think it was Protestantism, right? But I remember going through those degrees, and I remember always hearing, you may remember this, always hearing scriptures from the Bible. And I remember seeing a Bible on an altar. And so back then I was under no impression that Freemasonry was anti-Christian or anti-Christ, because it had the Bible, it had scriptures. And that's really one of the key dangers of Freemasonry, this syncretism, how it incorporates religions into itself to make it look like it's really, I just want to say that it's higher than religion, especially Christianity, but how it's so appealing like that to people of good intention, like, oh, there's nothing wrong going on here.
Subtle, right? Yeah. Very subtle.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's going back to something you said the last segment about how the Freemasons set themselves up to be a pseudo-church. A pseudo-universal church. And that was one of the things that bothered me when I was in the Blue Lodge, was how we would take in Buddhists, for instance. And I remember asking my father, Dad, how could this be possible? Buddhists don't believe in God. They believe as long as they have a belief, and as long as they admit to a higher power, that's all that was required. And I'm like, but there's a Bible on the altar. Like, I don't know. There's like, who am I? But I know that there's a conflict there just from reason, right?
Does that mean atheists can't become Freemasons?
Well, they are.
They are, especially, there's, every Grand Lodge is a little bit different. And so you find a lot of atheists in what's called the Grand Orient system of lodges. They would be called the European system. And so a little bit different in your continental system with your Anglo Freemasons versus the continental system. But yeah, in the Anglo system that Joe and I were in, you just had to be you had to believe in believe in monotheism. Had to have one God. And that conflict with India and Hindus and Buddhists go back to, I think, to about the 18th century, during the age of expansion, where Freemasons were encountering these people in India. And first they gave them their own lodge, and then they start to integrate them. But it's really a political move, right, back then.
Well, some of the things that I found troubling now, not at the time, obviously, but now that I've had the opportunity to meditate, ponder, and think back, being stripped of everything in your Christian identity, if I wasn't married, but if you were, you'd have to take your wedding ring off. Any crucifixes would have to be removed in order to enter into the lodge, because the idea being you're in the dark and you need to come into the light, and the lodge was the light. So your Christianity had to be checked at the door. Your marriage, that had to be checked at the door before you came in. Being stripped naked, obviously awkward, part of the ritual. The fact that your life was threatened at the point of a knife on your chest, that you would take blood oaths, that you would swear to be torn in twain, less than optimal, I would argue, or that you would participate in maybe even the murder of others if they should reveal the secrets of the lodge. Now, a Mason may argue, well, golly gee whiz, these are just words. They don't ever do them. They don't ever mean them. But should David O'Gray, should Christians, should Catholics make blood oaths? Is that something we ought to be doing?
I mean, definitely not. There's just some basic logical reasons and scriptural reasons. The church teaching it would be definitely opposed to that vehemently. But this is what I talk about in my book, a very interesting chapter in my book. I talk about Freemasonry as a religion. And there's some things that we can say. We take all religions and say, okay, they have all these same marks. Okay, this is how we know what a religion is, and we can debate about that. But one of the unique things about our religion is that our religions have a system that we could say is sacramental. And by sacramental, I mean the religion proposes through this means they're going to make you a different person, or they're going to put you on a different path, right? It's through these sacraments, right? Every religion has them. Now, Freemasonry has them as well, because Freemasonry is a secretic religion. And so in Freemasonry, the sacramental system is the degrees. And as you pointed out, just in the very first degree, what Freemasonry is proposing to do is this rebirth, right? Strip you down, bring you into the light, bring you out of the ignorance. And it does all these things to make you a better man, right? Not through Christ and his grace, but through your own human effort of learning how these working tools work and to apply them to your life. So these are sacraments. Be under no impression that they're not. So no, a Catholic cannot be a Freemason more than a Catholic can be a Muslim, or a Catholic can be a Buddhist or whatever. These are two different paths that the church has you on to become a saint, versus the Freemasons have you on to be some sort of better person through some sort of system of naturalism and differentism.
So my friend had a situation recently. I was out with a friend, and they were telling me my sister got approached by Freemasons to become a Freemason, and I was like, that doesn't make sense, because I thought only men could be Freemasons. So what exactly was happening in that situation, if you would know?
Yeah, so like I said, you have so many different sets of Freemasonry. They're kind of like Protestants in a sense. And so Joe and I, we belong to what's typically called the Anglo set of Freemasonry. That's the most predominant, started in England, Ireland, Scotland, right? Then you have your continental Freemasons, who the Anglos sometimes recognize as being legitimate, but then you have all these different subsets and groups. And so, you have Freemasons who are women, and you have co-Masonic lodges that's men and women. It's just a litany I mean, like Joe said, you could go to any bookstore and buy the ritual, start up your own Masonic lodge, you know, so it's...
Don't do that. We don't recommend that, by the way. But that's part of one of the issues, too, especially in conversations surrounding the church, something we tapped into with Dr. Jules Gomez in the last segment. There's a lot of myths, misconceptions. There's a lot of conspiracy theory labels that get thrown around anytime we try to have conversations around Freemasons and their interactivity within the Catholic Church. And I think in this regard, what happens, a lot of Catholic commentators lump all Masonic lodges into the same bucket, or all secret societies into the same bucket. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of distinction that takes place that I think is necessary, but also at the same time, you know, getting too far into the distinctions and the nuance, I think it does lose the message. And I think that's why I really think we just need to stick to the base thing. Why, like you asked me in the beginning, you know, why can't Catholic Freemasons? Well, be Freemasons. Well, because the church teaches that so, and this is why. And it never really had anything to do with the conspiracies or quasi-Masonic groups, you know, like the Illuminati or Carbonari and all these things. You know, the church teaches that it's good for our soul. Church is mother, and it wants to care for us. And the church has found out that Freemasonry is a religion and that we shouldn't belong to it. Let's
play devil's advocate where they have about 2 minutes or so on the clock here. But golly gee whiz, David, I know Freemasons. My uncle, my father, my brother, my neighbor, they're all good men. I don't understand what your problem is, David. Why are you such a hater? I mean, they wear their hats, they drive the little go-karts, they help children in hospitals. What is going on here? Why do you have a problem with good men doing good things?
Yeah, I mean, well, good isn't really a standard. Well-meaning isn't really a standard. And we're supposed to be aspiring to be saints, to be holy. And so, yeah, we could point out a good atheist here and there who does some so-called good things. But what we're talking about is an organization that, through its ideology, invades against the Catholic Church and Christ and puts souls on a path to hell. And so we should care for those souls rather than just be apathetic and say, oh, they're just doing some good things riding their motorcycles. No, the organization I belong to is not going to participate in their salvation.
Yeah. Amen. Good answer. Well, praise be to God. We're getting down to the wire here. The Catholic Catechism on Freemasonry. Where's the best place to get that?
Yeah, if you like Amazon, it's on Amazon. If you like Barnes & Noble or Target, it's there too. But if you want to, support Catholic publishers, just go to St. Dominic's Media, stdominicsmedia.com, and you purchase there, free shipping there as well. But you can get anywhere that you desire to. Even Our Lady of Our Sorrowful Mother's Ministry, they're one Catholic bookstore organization that has it on their website. So yeah.
Praise be to God. His other books are also linked up at davidlgray.info. Check them out. And don't forget his radio show Wednesdays, 4 p.m. Central across the Guadalupe Radio Network. God love you, David.
If you like that interview, then be sure to check out some of our other interviews that you might find fascinating. And don't forget to like and subscribe and share this interview with someone that you think will find this informative and inspiring. God love you.